Tyler pressed the cracked glass door open with his shoulder, the kind of door that gave under your touch like it was sighing. The bell above it didn't ring. Maybe it never had. The fluorescent lights inside flickered in slow, dying intervals, casting faint pulses over aisles that smelled like burnt coffee and old rubber soles. His jacket, cheap, faded, not even thrifted, just forgotten, still clung to last night's rain. No one looked at him. Not the cashier busy laughing on FaceTime, not the floor manager barking at a teenage stockboy for stacking like a damn blind raccoon, and certainly not the supervisor in the red polo who saw Tyler and smirked like she'd sniffed something rotten. The insult came casually, a few minutes in, not loud, not brave, just loud enough for the security camera to hear it tiff. Anyone ever actually checked those tapes? She muttered it to a coworker while Tyler examined a clearance rack of khakis, folded like they were ashamed to be seen. Some people think pretending to be poor makes them noble, she said. He looks like he sleeps in his car. Laughter followed. Quick, sharp, practiced. Tyler didn't flinch. He just nodded to himself like he'd been waiting for it, like her words checked off a box on a list he never wrote down, but always carried. There's something about silence after cruelty that feels more violent than the words. He didn't say anything. He just walked up to the register, paid cash, his fingertips lingering for a second too long on the counter, and left. And that's where this story should have ended. A man insulted for blending in too well, walking out into the drizzle, with a paper bag and a truth he didn't owe anyone. But it didn't end, because an hour later, after the shift changed and the sun finally cut through the gray sky like it was slicing a wound open, that same supervisor vanished. Gone, just like that. The cameras stopped working at 3:41 p.m. frozen on a single frame, her back turned to the break room, a coffee cup in her left hand, a phone pressed to her right ear, her lips moving. But here's the part that no one talks about. The sound, 1 second of audio, glitched into static, then replaced with a whisper. A man's voice, a name that no one who knew her had ever heard before. And one more thing. In the inventory logs that night, a single item was added back into the system: an old cotton jacket, size large, faded, damp. No one had returned it. No one remembered selling it. And when the store tried to donate it the next morning, it was gone. Tyler never came back. But every week since, someone sees him. Always in a different store. Same jacket, same silence. Just watching. Last Tuesday, a baby barely a year old pointed at the security monitor in store number 47 and said a word. Her parents swear she'd never been taught. Tyler, the monitor, glitched. And for exactly 2 seconds, she wasn't reflected in the screen at all. The mother's face turned pale, not the dramatic, cinematic kind of pale, but the kind that creeps in slow, draining life with it. She looked at her daughter, then back at the monitor. The toddler, now uninterested, was clapping at her reflection like nothing had happened. But the moment lingered, heavy, like a drop of ink in clear water, spreading out into the mind in thin, corrupting rings. The footage was played back, of course, over and over, but there was nothing unusual. No audio, no name, just a silent clip of a child pointing to nothing. Later that night, after she put her daughter to bed, the mother Lisa sat in her car for 2 hours in the driveway, engine off, staring through the windshield like her house no longer belonged to her. She couldn't explain it. There was no story to tell. It wasn't the word itself. It was how it came out. Tyler, not playful, not mispronounced, like it wasn't hers, like it had been placed inside her through her, a memory that didn't belong. At 2:17 a.m., her daughter began screaming from the upstairs hallway. Not the kind of cry that says, "I had a nightmare," or "I'm scared." No, this was recognition. She was screaming at something. Her eyes were open, frozen. She was pointing down the stairs, shaking her tiny head, whispering "he's in the wall" over and over until her voice cracked raw. Alyssa scooped her up, ran to the bedroom, and locked the door. The baby fell asleep instantly. Alyssa didn't. 3 towns over, beneath a humming bank of halogen lights inside a rust-burned storage unit. A man watched old security tapes play in reverse. Each reel slowed down the moment before the glitch, freezing on faces he couldn't remember but somehow knew. He didn't flinch when the audio snapped, when a whisper filled the room. He just scratched at the back of his neck like it itched. Beneath the skin, this was Mason. It wasn't law enforcement, wasn't private security, wasn't family. He claimed to be researching patterns of disappearances in low-income retail sectors, but there were no credentials, no website, no history of him before 2020. What Mason had was a voice, steady, clean, hypnotic, the kind of voice you believe because it sounds like it already knows what you'll say. And he was obsessed with Tyler. Not the man, the pattern. Tyler wasn't one person, he said. He was a trigger, a presence, a contagion. Tyler appears where trust dies, Mason once said on a podcast that no longer exists. He's not haunting people. He's what's left when they're no longer real. The podcast had been wiped, but fragments remained, backed up to drives no one claimed to own. In one clip, static-laced and half-corrupted, Mason said something that sent Reddit into spirals for months. greater than what they don't want you to remember is simple. We used to have different memories. Before the change. Before he started showing up. Mason hasn't been seen in public since April, but his voice still circulates in voicemail inboxes of people who swear they never gave him their number. 2 weeks after the incident at store number 47, corporate issued a silent recall on certain in-store recordings. Officially, it was a software malfunction, something to do with timestamp dates. But among the staff, it became known as the glitch hour. Each file ended the same way, a customer staring at a blank wall, lips moving, then stillness. Like they were listening, like something was answering. Every employee interviewed claimed not to remember seeing that person in the store. 1. Cashier Jessica was sent home after fainting while reviewing footage. Her manager found her in the break room, curled under the vending machine, eyes wide open, whispering to herself. The only words they made out were, "He touched my sleeve. He touched my sleeve," and I knew where my mom went. No one had mentioned her mother. She hadn't said a word about being adopted. Jessica quit the next day and deleted every social account she owned. But her coworker, Eric, said something that stuck with everyone. He said he watched her leave the store that night, but her shadow stayed, like it hadn't decided yet. Alyssa began dreaming of water. Not drowning, floating. Beneath it, always beneath it. And in the dreams, she wasn't alone. There was always a man, just ahead, just out of reach, wearing a jacket that seemed to move like it was breathing. She couldn't see his face, only the curve of his neck, the slope of his shoulders, and the fact that he never once turned around. Then came the voicemail. She woke to it. No number, just static for 12 seconds. And at the end, a voice. Familiar. Hers greater than "Don't go in the store again. We were wrong. It wasn't the cameras." She dropped the phone. Didn't sleep for the next 43 hours. Her daughter kept asking for the man in the kitchen. Alyssa lived alone. She reached out to the police. They referred her to social services. Social services referred her to psychiatric care, and she almost believed them. Until she pulled an old baby monitor out of the closet, the kind with no Wi-Fi, just static and audio. She set it in her daughter's room that night, 2:31 a.m. The tape caught something, a voice, deep, rusted, faint, but direct. "Greater than you found me. Don't stop." She ran. Alyssa tracked down Mason through a forum that required a login phrase. "We remember before." They met in a diner 3 hours from her home, under an alias she doesn't remember choosing. Mason looked different than his photo. Grayer, thin eyes, clouded like he hadn't slept since the tapes began surfacing. He didn't greet her, just slid a flash drive across the table and said, "Watch it in complete darkness. No mirrors, no screens behind you." She asked why. He smiled, "But the kind that says I used to believe in something too." That night, she locked herself in the basement and did exactly as he instructed. The footage was raw. A 2009 store opening. Balloons, music, a crowd cheering. Then, a pause. A child maybe 6 staring directly into the camera, not blinking, lips parted. Slowly, as if remembering something painful, she said, "You were here already." Behind her, in the mirrored window of a drink cooler, a man in a jacket, watching, smiling. When Alyssa paused the video, her own face blinked back at her in the reflection. Only. She wasn't smiling. What if memory is not lost but replaced? What if every time we misplace something, it's not us forgetting, it's the world rewriting? What if the reason no one talks about Tyler isn't because they're afraid but because they've already forgotten? This is where the story should have broken, where the fear should have shattered into clarity. But instead, Alyssa began to question something worse. What if she had met him before? What if this wasn't new? She found a photo in a childhood box, buried in her garage, her age 10, standing outside a grocery store, long since demolished. Behind her, a man with his back turned, his jacket damp, his reflection in the glass, smiling directly at the camera. She turned it over. In her own handwriting. It said, "Tyler brought me home today." She stared at it until her hands stopped feeling like her own. There are stories hidden in files that don't open anymore. Faces that show up on glitch frames in live security footage. Entire shifts where no receipts print, but inventory drops anyway. These things don't make the news. They vanish under technical errors and unverified reports. Because there's something worse than a haunting, something more terrifying than ghosts. Replacement. The quiet, slow erasure of reality, until no one is left who remembers how it started. Mason is gone now, the forum is down, and last night, Alyssa's daughter said something new. She pointed to the window and whispered, "He's not outside anymore." The baby monitor picked up no sound, only breathing, and for exactly 3 seconds, Alyssa didn't remember her daughter's name. It started with a name and the city records a name Alyssa didn't recognize, yet knew in the back of her bones. She wasn't even sure why she'd been looking anymore. Mason had vanished. The forum was gone. Her daughter hadn't said the word Tyler in over a week, and the baby monitor had gone silent after she buried it behind the garage. She told herself this was the end of it, that the fear had passed like a storm and left her only with scattered damage. Nothing fatal, but she couldn't stop clicking. The name Eliza Hart had appeared on an abandoned property record tied to store number 47. Not a manager, not a customer, a former tenant, apparently, of the land beneath the store, before it was recent, born 1951, disappeared 1997. No official missing persons report, no obituary, just a line that said, last known location, Hart's General Supply, decommissioned. Something about it pulled her in, slow and sick, like gravity bending. She drove 6 hours without packing a bag, her daughter asleep in the back seat with headphones pressed against tiny ears. The old GPS led her down dirt roads that weren't on maps anymore, roads that looked like they'd been erased from memory. The air grew heavier the closer she got, the trees too still, the world too hushed. When she arrived at the coordinates, there was nothing, no building, no sign, just a slight depression in the earth, like something had once existed there, but was now unremembered. Her daughter wouldn't get out of the car. The wind picked up as she walked the site. The ground was loose, almost spongy, soft in a way that suggested burial. There were fragments, bits of concrete, old tiles, a piece of rusted metal with the corner of a price tag still glued to it. And then, embedded in the dirt, she found it, a cracked name tag. Eliza, floor manager. It looked too new. The plastic unaged, the ink unfaded, like it hadn't been lying in the ground for 28 years. Like someone had put it there. She brought it back home, put it in the drawer next to the old photo from her childhood. And for a few days, the world went still. The voices stopped. The dreams faded. Her daughter began sleeping through the night. Again, Alyssa almost believed it was over, until the woman showed up. She knocked once, not twice, once, sharp, rhythmic. Alyssa opened the door and stared at the stranger standing on her porch in a pale yellow sweater with buttons too tight for her chest. Her smile was too wide, her hands too still. She introduced herself as Dr. Evelyn Shore, a behavioral specialist working on behalf of a recovery program for dissociative trauma survivors. Said she was following up on Alyssa's name being submitted to a registry. Alyssa had never signed anything. Dr. Shore talked for exactly 3 minutes. The entire conversation memorized, down to the tone. Her eyes flicked toward the drawer where Alyssa had kept the name tag. She never glanced at the daughter playing on the floor. She never blinked at the family photo on the wall. She asked questions but didn't wait for answers. She left a pamphlet. It had no phone number, just a set of coordinates. The name at the bottom wasn't Evelyn Shore. It was Eliza Hart. Alyssa opened the drawer after the woman left. The name tag was gone, and the photo, the man in the jacket Tyler, was missing. Only her younger self remained in the frame, now pointing to empty glass. Asterisk, Alyssa told herself it was a trick, a hallucination. The result of weeks without real sleep and the echo of stories stitched together in paranoia. She would not be the next name whispered into nothingness. She took her daughter to her sister's house 2 states away, told her she needed a weekend alone. She unplugged everything when she got back. Wi-Fi, TV, phone, cut the cable, taped over the cameras, anything that could record, transmit, or reflect she sealed. Then she took the pamphlet and drove. She expected another void, another false location. But when she arrived, there it was. A building that shouldn't have been standing. Asterisk, Hart's General Supply, asterisk, untouched by time. No vines, no rot. The sign still lit, the windows still clean. Like it had been waiting, holding its breath for her. The parking lot was full, but there were no people, no sound. She walked in, and the smell hit her lemons and cigarette smoke, and a vague sweetness that made her teeth ache. The shelves were stocked. Every item tagged with red numbers and no barcodes. A single radio played somewhere in the back, skipping through channels like a broken time machine. And then, she saw him, Tyler, 5th aisle, frozen foods, staring into a freezer that held no food, just mirrors. When he turned, she thought he might speak. Instead, he placed a hand on the glass. And she remembered. She remembered being here before. She remembered walking this store as a child, holding her mother's hand, eating a candy she didn't pay for, watching the man in the jacket smile at her mother like he already knew her secrets. She remembered a voice saying, asterisk, don't touch the mirrors, it keeps them here. Asterisk, and she remembered something worse. That the first time she forgot her mother's name. Asterisk, the aisles began to shift as she moved. Doors appeared where there had been none. Familiar sounds echoed in unnatural directions. The radio played voices from her past conversations that hadn't happened, but felt real. And in every reflection, she caught herself moving just a second too late. Like her own image was waiting to see what she'd do first. In the back of the store, under flickering fluorescent lights, she found a door marked staff only. Behind it, a small room lined with tapes, each labeled by date, by store, by name, her name. She pulled one and inserted it into the deck. Static. Then a voice. Asterisk, this is what they don't want you to remember. We don't die. We get overwritten. Asterisk, the screen showed her as a child again, walking out of a store that didn't exist, holding the hand of someone who wasn't her mother, someone in a yellow sweater. Someone smiling too wide. Then came the glitch. The tape reversed itself. The same scene played again, only this time it wasn't her in the footage, it was her daughter, and she wasn't walking out. She was being let in. Alyssa fled the store, drove home without looking in the mirrors, screamed when she saw her own reflection, blinked twice in the rear view. The door to her house was ajar when she arrived. The silence inside was worse than any scream. She called her sister. Her number didn't exist. She tried again, no record. No record. She went online, reconnected everything. Looked up her daughter's name in the school registry. Nothing. Looked up her own birth certificate. Not found. Looked up her childhood address. Burned. Down in 1992, she opened the family photo album. The first page was missing. The second had been rewritten. Her daughter's face blurred, distorted, like a failed upload, and there, in the background of every picture, was the jacket. Sometimes in the crowd, sometimes in reflections, sometimes just a sleeve. Always watching. She opened the front door again, panicked, ready to drive, to scream, to tear reality in half if she had to. But the world outside had changed. It was not her street anymore. It was the parking lot. General Supply. The same cars, the same light, and across the asphalt, walking toward her house like it belonged to him, was Tyler. Only this time, he wasn't smiling. He pointed to the house behind her and whispered, "This is where it started." Alyssa turned. Inside, her childhood self was standing at the top of the stairs, holding the name tag, and behind her, in the glass of the family photo frame, was the original picture, the one before, the one she'd never seen. It wasn't Alyssa. In the photo, it wasn't her family, it wasn't her life. Just a woman in a yellow sweater, holding a child that looked almost like her. Underneath, in handwriting she didn't recognize, were the words, ***, Tyler brought me home today. ***. Then came the knock. Once. Sharp. Rhythmic. Not from the front door. From the mirror behind her, and the reflection didn't wait for her to move. It reached out first. Cut to black. She thought she was alone. That whatever had infected her life, whatever had slipped between the cracks of memory and rewired the shape of her daughter's face. Her own history, the mirrors in her home, was hers to carry, hers to bury. But that was before the envelopes began arriving. No return address. No handwriting. Just postmarked from different states, sometimes two at a time. Always blank inside except for a single item. A photograph, old, creased, sometimes torn, sometimes still smelling of wet ash or iron dust. And always the same figure in the background. A man in a dark jacket, never facing the camera, but present, half reflected in a car door, distorted through glass, silhouetted in the frame of a window no one remembers opening. Someone had been collecting them, watching her story unfold, not just hers. The third envelope arrived on a Thursday, slid under her door as if by hand, though she heard no knock this time. Inside, there was no photo, just a map, not a real one, a composite cutouts from retail directories, folded blueprints, screenshots of security cam placement schematics for stores that no longer existed. Someone had drawn red lines between them, circles, and in the center, a symbol, two overlapping rectangles with an eye inside, drawn in ink that shimmered strangely under light, like it didn't want to be seen too long. She turned the page over. There was writing this time, ***. You were right all along. ***, no signature. That night, the dreams came back. Not her own, but shared. She was somewhere between waking and sleep, and she knew without knowing how that others were dreaming with her. A crowd in shadow. Men and women she didn't recognize. And yet, felt, they were in places she'd never been. But they looked into the same mirrors, watched the same footage, whispered the same name when they woke with blood in their mouths and no memories of what they'd done the day before. In the center of the dream was a screen, looping found footage from 20 years ago, grainy, time-stamped, haunted by a ghost not yet dead. Retail aisles, shifting floors, a child pointing at the camera and saying something no one could hear, but everyone remembered. She woke with a taste in her mouth like old pennies. ** It escalated quickly after that. She started noticing the symbol, the rectangles and eye carved into elevator panels, drawn in chalk outside gas stations, smeared in condensation on the windows of buses she didn't take. She wasn't imagining it. Once, she took a picture of it outside a pharmacy. When she went back later, the wall was smooth, painted clean, but her phone still held the image. And in the photo, in the far corner of the frame, someone was watching her, a woman in a hoodie. The next night, the woman appeared in person. She was waiting across the street when Alyssa left her house. No attempt to hide, just watching. Alyssa approached her, demanded answers. But the woman only smiled, said, ***, you didn't see the real tape. They never released the full one." Alyssa asked who she was. The woman tilted her head and said, "The same thing you are, a placeholder." Then, she stepped back into the alley, and for a second, Alyssa saw something that made her bones lock in place. It wasn't the woman's face, it was the shadow she left behind on the wall. It was still there after she walked away. Still shifting, still moving, like it wasn't ready to go yet. The next day, Alyssa went back to the room with the tapes. Hart's general supply. It was still there. Still open. Still unchanged. She pulled more reels, none labeled this time. They showed different people, different years, different stores, but the same event. A moment always at 3:41 p.m. where someone would stop, turn to a mirror, and freeze. The footage would glitch, and when it resumed, that person was different. Sometimes subtly. A change in posture, a new scar, a limp. Sometimes more, a whole new face, a new name on their badge. And always, afterward, someone would vanish. On the last reel, there was a frame of her own face, except it wasn't hers. Not quite. Her eyes were too dark, her mouth too still. It was a version of her that hadn't been born yet, or maybe had already been erased. And in the reflection behind her, someone had drawn the eye symbol in blood on the wall. She turned away from the screen, heart racing, throat raw, and saw the observer for the first time. Not Tyler, not the figure in the jacket. This was different. He didn't move. He didn't breathe. He just stood at the far end of the hall, where the lights flickered endlessly, and watched her through a lens that didn't blink. He was tall, thin, and wore no uniform, no name. His eyes were covered by mirrored glasses that reflected only her, but not how she was, how she used to be. And when she stepped closer, the air around her bent, like static, like resistance. She asked, "What is this?" He said nothing. But on the wall next to him, someone had scrawled, asterisk, asterisk, "We are not who we remember being, we are what they left behind." Asterisk, 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 the conspiracy wasn't new. The tapes dated back to 1984. The disappearances, the replacements, the shifting identities, and the rewritten family trees. Alyssa found old case files buried in hacked databases, under file names like retail, _anomalies, _case 13, MP4, and asterisk, asterisk, mirror, _event, _lockdown, _protocol. Asterisk, asterisk, some were redacted, some were incomplete. But the same locations appeared over and over: strip malls in dying towns, franchise chains on the edge of bankruptcy. Places no one remembers until they vanish completely. One file in particular chilled. Her blood. Asterisk, asterisk, subject number 32. Hart, Alyssa. Last confirmed original. Terminated 1997. Echo signatures detected. 2021 to 2025. Asterisk, asterisk, in the margin. Someone had written, asterisk, asterisk, they tried to delete her. It didn't stick. And below that, the others are awake now. You are not alone. Asterisk, asterisk, it wasn't just happening to her. It never was. The others, those who'd seen the signs, who had lost memories they couldn't prove were ever theirs, who'd buried siblings that no one else remembers existing, were connected, by dream, by symbol, by blood that didn't match DNA records, and shadows that moved out of sync. They communicated in subtle ways: stickers on lampposts, scrambled voicemail messages, receipts with numbers out of order. The deeper she looked, the more she realized this wasn't conspiracy, it was infrastructure. A system beneath the surface of everything, like scaffolding no one sees because they've been taught not to look. And the force behind it, it was watching, not chasing, not attacking, but studying. Like they were all test subjects in an experiment long past ethical expiration. Like they were failures of memory cleanup. The observer was not there to help. He was there to document. Asterisk, the next night, Alyssa's daughter woke up and handed her a folded paper with crayon marks that looked like nonsense at first, until she realized it was a map. The same pattern as the one in the envelope. With the eye drawn in red. Her daughter said, asterisk, asterisk, I saw them in the dream. They told me you used to be someone else. And then added, but it's okay, I liked you better now. Asterisk, asterisk, Alyssa didn't cry. She didn't scream. She simply walked to the mirror in the hallway, touched the glass, and asked, how many times have I changed? And from behind the reflection, her own voice answered, asterisk, asterisk, more than you want to remember. Asterisk, 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 there is no resolution. Only recursion, only evidence buried beneath static and timestamps and store openings. No one attended but still remember attending. The story isn't ending. It's looping, because someone's watching with you right now, seeing what you see. And if you go back to the first scene, the first frame, and freeze it just as the door opens, just as the insult is muttered or duel, notice something wrong, something no one pointed out the first time. In the top right corner of the frame, in the convex mirror meant for theft prevention, Tyler is already there, watching, smiling, waiting for you to remember.